3 days after the raid on Calyx 4, Una received a message. Commander Talus wanted to see her in his office. She walked through the station alone. The hallways that once ignored her now fell silent as she passed. Cadets stepped aside. Officers nodded in greeting. Everyone knew her face now. Everyone knew what she had done. Commander Talus's office was on the top level of the military section. The room was large, with windows that looked out into the stars. Talus sat behind a wide metal desk covered with screens and papers. He looked tired. The gray skin of his face seemed darker than usual, and his forearms rested heavy on the desk. "Cadet Park," he said. "Please, sit down." Una sat in the chair across from him. She waited. Tael studied her for a long moment. His large eyes moved across her face, searching for something. "I have been trying to decide what to do with you," he said finally. "You disobeyed orders. You stole a military shuttle. You entered an active combat zone without authorization." Una said nothing. "By all rights, I should expel you from the academy. I should send you back to Earth in disgrace." Talus paused. "But the 37 researchers you saved are writing letters to Coalition Command, praising your actions. Drox Clan has officially recognized you as a warrior. And every instructor at this academy is telling me that punishing you would be the greatest mistake of my career." He leaned forward. "So instead of punishing you, I am going to promote you. Effective immediately, you will be transferred to the Advanced Combat Program. You will train with senior cadets. You will receive access to classified tactical databases. You will be fast-tracked to become one of the first human officers in the Coalition military." Una blinked. This was not what she had expected. "Why?" "Because you are too valuable to waste," Talus said. "Because what you did on Calyx 4 was impossible, and you did it anyway. Because every species in the galaxy needs to see what humans are capable of." He stood and walked to the window. The stars shone cold and distant outside the glass. "I have commanded soldiers from 43 species," he said, his back to her. "I have seen Calori charge into battle without fear. I have seen Murns calculate impossible odds and win. I have seen creatures from the edges of the galaxy fight with powers that seem like magic." He turned to face her. "But I have never seen anything like you, sir." Talus walked back to his desk and sat down. "On Calyx 4, my team found the bodies of the raiders. We examined them. We studied how they died." He pulled up images on his screen, images Una did not need to see. She remembered every kill. Knife wounds to weak points that most species do not even know exist. Broken necks executed with perfect technique. Wire strangulation. Redirected blaster fire. You used their own panic against them. You made them kill each other. He shook his head slowly. "How did you know all of this? How did you learn to fight like that? You are 22 years old. You have been at this academy for less than a month. Where does someone like you come from?" Una was quiet for a long moment. She looked at her hands, small hands, soft hands, hands that had killed so many. "I grew up on Earth," she said finally, "in a place called Neo-Bizon. It is a city in what was once Korea. A beautiful place if you only see it from above. But on the streets, in the shadows, it is something else." She met Talus's eyes. "My mother died when I was 7. My father was never there. I lived on my own. I stole food to survive. I slept in abandoned buildings. I learned to hide from gangs, from police, from everyone who wanted to hurt me. And you survived. Yes, but not by being strong. Not by being fast. I survived by watching, by learning, by understanding the people who wanted to hurt me better than they understood themselves." She leaned forward. "On Earth, Commander, humans are not the strongest creatures. We are not the fastest. We do not have claws or venom or armor. For most of our history, we were prey. We were hunted by animals that were bigger, stronger, and deadlier than us. Talus listened in silence. But we did not die, Una continued. We survived. And do you know how? Not by fighting. Not at first. We survived by waiting, by watching, by learning the patterns of our predators. We learned when they hunted and when they slept. We learned where they were weak. We learned how to avoid them, and when avoiding them was not possible, we learned how to kill them. She stood up from her chair. The galaxy thinks humans are fragile, emotional, weak, and maybe we are. Our bodies break easily. We feel pain deeply. We love and hate with all our hearts. She took a step toward the window, looking out at the endless dark. But do you know what a species becomes when it survives 10,000 years of being hunted? When every generation has to fight just to see the next sunrise. When every child grows up knowing that the world is trying to kill them. She turned to face Talus. It becomes the thing that everything else should fear. The words hung in the air. Talus did not speak. He did not move. He just stared at the small human girl who had killed a Kalori in 3 seconds and slaughtered 12 raiders in 40 minutes. You ask where I come from, Una said. I come from Earth. I come from a species that has been fighting for survival since the moment we first walked upright. We have faced ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. We have survived everything the universe has thrown at us. She walked toward the door. And we did not survive by being strong. We survived by being patient, by being smart, by never ever giving up. At the door, she stopped and looked back at Talus. My name is Una Park. I am the first human to complete a Tier 1 combat trial. I am the first human to eliminate an entire raider crew alone. Her eyes were calm. Her voice was steady. I will not be the last. She opened the door and stepped out. Behind her, Talus sat alone in his office. The stars shone cold through the window. The silence pressed in from all sides. He thought about what she had said. About humans. About Earth. About 10,000 years of survival. He thought about the Kalori, who believed strength was everything. He thought about the Mirans, who believed intelligence was the key to victory. He thought about all the species in the galaxy, each one certain that they were the greatest, the most powerful, the most worthy of ruling the stars. And then he thought about Una Park, small, quiet, unassuming, a creature that could be broken with one hand, a creature that had learned to kill gods. Talus leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. For the first time in many years, he felt something like hope and something like fear. Hope, because the humans were allies of the coalition. Because if more of them were like Una Park, then the galaxy might finally have a chance against the threats that lurked in the dark places between stars. Fear, because he understood now what the humans really were. Not prey, not predators. Something else. Something new. A species forged in the fire of survival. A species that had learned to wait in the shadows. A species that never forgot and never gave up. And now they were out among the stars. Now they were learning the weaknesses of every species they met. Now they were watching, waiting, planning. The galaxy had no idea what was coming, but Talus did. He had seen it in Una's eyes. He had heard it in her voice. The humans were not here to serve. They were not here to follow. They were here to show the universe what 10,000 years of survival had created. And the universe would never be the same. Outside the station, the stars burned cold and ancient. Somewhere among them, on a small blue planet called Earth, billions more humans were waking up, working, dreaming, surviving. Each one of them carrying the same fire that burned in Una Park. Each one of them murmur in the dark, each one of them waiting for their moment to strike. Death murmur. The name spread across the galaxy like a whisper. And behind the whisper, something else followed. Something the galaxy had never seen before. The humans were coming, and nothing would ever be the same. Word spread across Station Orva 7 like fire through dry grass. By the time Yuna's shuttle landed in the hangar bay, half the station already knew what she had done. Cadets whispered in the hallways. Officers spoke in quiet voices behind closed doors. Even the alien merchants and workers who lived on the station were talking about it. The human girl. The one who killed a Kalori in 3 seconds. The one who went to Calyx 4 alone and slaughtered 12 Hollow Raiders before anyone else could arrive. Yuna walked through the hangar bay toward the exit. She was tired. Her muscles ached. The blood on her uniform had dried and turned dark brown. All she wanted was a hot shower and a few hours of sleep. But the moment she stepped into the main corridor, she knew that would not happen. Cadets were lined up on both sides of the hallway. Dozens of them, maybe 100. They stood in silence, watching her pass. Some of them were Kalori Drox people. Some were Mirans, with their 4 arms pressed flat against their bodies. Others were species Yuna did not recognize. None of them spoke. None of them moved. They just watched her with eyes full of something she had not seen before. Fear, respect. Wondered why Yuna kept walking. She did not look at them. She did not slow down. She just moved through the crowd like water through rocks, steady and calm. Someone stepped forward. A massive Kalori with dark bone plates and scars across his face. He was older than the cadets, maybe a warrior instructor, maybe a visiting soldier. He blocked Yuna's path. She stopped and looked up at him. The Kalori studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he pressed his fist against his chest. A Kalori gesture of respect given only to worthy enemies. "I'm Grok," he said. "I am the uncle of Drak. You killed my nephew." Yuna said nothing. Her hand moved slightly toward her knife. Grok saw the movement and smiled. Not a cruel smile, but something almost warm. "You killed him in fair combat. You found his weakness and used it without hesitation. In our culture, this is not murder. This is honor." He reached into his belt and pulled out a small metal disc. It was polished and bright, covered with strange symbols. "This is a token of acknowledgement," Grok said. "The Kalori do not give these to outsiders. But you are not an outsider anymore. You are a warrior." He placed the disc in Yuna's hand. The metal was cool against her palm. "Drak was weak," Grok continued. "He thought size was the same as strength. You taught him the truth. For that, my clan thanks you." Yuna looked at the disc, then back at Grok. "I did not kill him to teach a lesson. I killed him because he was trying to kill me." "Yes," Grok said. "That is what makes you dangerous. You do not fight for glory. You do not fight for honor. You fight to survive. That is the purest form of combat." He stepped aside and let her pass. Yuna continued walking. Behind her, she heard Grok's voice one more time. "Watch your back, human. Not everyone will be as grateful as I am." She reached her barracks room an hour later. Voss was inside, sitting on her bed with her hands clasped together. When Yuna opened the door, Demiran jumped up. "Yuna!" Voss rushed toward her, then stopped when she saw the blood. "Are you hurt? Do you need medical attention?" "I can call someone. I am fine," Yuna said. "The blood is not mine." She walked past Voss and began removing her uniform. Her movements were slow and mechanical. She was running on empty. The adrenaline had worn off hours ago. Now she was just tired. Voss watched her with worried eyes. "Everyone is talking about you. The whole station. They say you killed 12 raiders by yourself. They say you move through the dark like a phantom. They say you are not human, that you are something else wearing a human body." Yuna stepped into the small bathroom and turned on the shower. Hot water poured over her skin. washing away the blood and dirt. She stood there for a long time, letting the heat soak into her muscles. When she came out, Voss was still waiting. "Una," the Mirren said softly, "I need to tell you something." Una dried her hair with a towel. "What?" Voss took a deep breath. "In Mirren culture, there is a creature called the Murmur Beast. It lives in the deep forests of our home world. It is not the largest predator. It is not the fastest. But it is the most feared." Una sat down on her bed. "Why?" "Because it makes no sound when it hunts. It moves through the shadows without disturbing a single leaf. Its prey never knows it is there until the moment it strikes. By the time you hear the whisper of its breath, just a soft murmur in the darkness, you are already dead." Voss looked at Una with eyes that held both fear and admiration. "You are like that," she said. "You say nothing. You show nothing. You watch and wait and learn. And then, when the time is right, you move and death follows." She paused. "The other cadets have started calling you something. A name. They whisper it in the hallways when they think no one can hear." "What name?" Voss's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "Death Murmur." The words hung in the air between them. Una turned them over in her mind. Death Murmur. It was a strange name. A dark name. But it fit. She thought about her life. About the streets of Neo-Bizan, where she learned to survive. About the man she killed when she was 12. About Drak falling in the arena. About the 12 raiders lying dead in the outpost on Calyx 4. She had always been quiet. She had always been patient. She had always waited for the perfect moment to strike. And when she struck, she did not stop until the threat was gone. Death Murmur. Yes, it fit. "I have been called worse," she said finally. Voss let out a nervous laugh. "That is all you have to say? The whole station is afraid of you, and that is all you have to say?" Una lay back on her bed and closed her eyes. "I did not come here to make friends, Voss. I came here to prove that humans are not weak. I came here to show the galaxy what we can do, and you have. You have shown them." "Not yet," Una said. "This is just the beginning. Drak was one Kalori. The raiders were one enemy. The galaxy is full of people who think humans are prey. Full of species who want to conquer our world and enslave our people." She opened her eyes and looked at the ceiling. "I will show them all, one by one, battle by battle. I will make them understand that humans are not to be underestimated, that we are not soft, that we are not weak." She turned her head to look at Voss. "And when I am done, they will remember my name. Not because I asked them to, but because they cannot forget." Voss was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "I believe you," she said. "I really do." Outside their room, the station continued to buzz with whispers. Cadets spoke Una's name in hushed tones. Officers debated what to do with her. Drak's clan had acknowledged her. The researchers from Calyx 4 had called her their savior. And everywhere, in every corner of Station Orva 7, the new name spread like a shadow growing in the dark. Death Murmur, the human who killed without hesitation. The human who moved without sound. The human who was small and quiet and unassuming until she was not. By nightfall, everyone knew. By nightfall, everything had changed. Una Park was no longer just a cadet. She was a legend being born, and the galaxy was just beginning to learn what that meant. Training at the Galactic Coalition Military Academy was brutal. Every morning began at 6 with physical drills. Running, climbing, lifting heavy weights, the instructors pushed the cadets until their bodies screamed for rest. Then came combat training, weapons practice, tactical studies, and survival lessons. Una finished every drill. She was never first, but she was never last. She stayed in the middle, where no one paid attention to her. The other cadets ran past her, fighting to be the best. Una led them. She did not need to be the best. She needed to learn, and she learned everything. She watched the Kalori cadets and memorized how they moved. Their bone-plated skin made them slow to turn. Their necks were stiff. They could not look behind them without moving their whole body. She noticed the soft spots where their plates did not grow under the jaw, behind the knees, inside the elbows. She watched the Mirans and learned their fighting style. They used all 4 arms at once, which made them dangerous up close. But their attacks followed patterns. Left, right, upper left, upper right. Always the same order. Always predictable. She watched, and she learned, and she said nothing. The other cadets ignored her. To them, she was just a weak human who would wash out in a few weeks. Some of them made jokes about her. Some of them pushed her in the hallways or took her food in the mess hall. Yuna never fought back. She never complained. She just looked at them with her quiet eyes and walked away. "Why do you let them treat you like that?" Voss asked one night in their room. "You could report them. The instructors would punish them." Yuna was cleaning her boots. "It does not matter. It matters to me. I do not like seeing my bunkmate treated like garbage." "They think I'm weak," Yuna said. "Let them think that. It makes things easier." Voss shook her head. "I do not understand you, Yuna. I really do not." 2 weeks into training, the instructors announced the first live combat trial. It was a tradition at the academy. Cadets would fight each other in a controlled arena. The fights were not supposed to be deadly, but injuries were common. Sometimes cadets died. The rules were simple. 2 cadets entered the arena. They fought until one could not continue. Weapons were allowed. There were no limits on how much damage you could do. Each cadet could choose their opponent. Strong cadets usually picked other strong cadets to prove their worth. The weak ones tried to hide in the back and avoid being chosen. Yuna stood with the other cadets around the arena. It was a large circular space with sand on the floor and 4 shields around the edges to protect the audience. Already, 2 cadets had fought. A Miran had broken a Kalori's arm. A Kalori had knocked another Kalori unconscious with a single punch. Then Drac stepped into the arena. Yuna recognized him. He was the Kalori from the processing line on her first day. The one who had called her a child. The one who had tried to scare her. Drac was one of the largest Kalori in the academy. His bone plates were thick and dark. His arms were as big as Yuna's whole body. When he walked, the ground seemed to shake. He looked around at the other cadets with a cruel smile. "I choose my opponent," he said. His voice boomed across the arena. His eyes found Yuna. "The human," he said. "I want to fight the human." Whispers spread through the crowd. Some cadets laughed. Others looked surprised. A few looked worried. Voss grabbed Yuna's arm. "Do not do this. You can refuse. It is allowed." Yuna pulled her arm free. "I know." She walked into the arena. The sand was soft under her boots. She stopped in the center and looked up at Drac. He was so much bigger than her. Standing next to him, she looked like a child. Drac laughed. "This will be quick. I promise to make your death painless, Softblood." Yuna said nothing. She reached into her uniform and pulled out her combat knife. It was a standard academy blade, short and sharp. "Nothing special. The instructor raised his hand. "The fight begins on my signal. 3, 2, 1. Begin." Drac charged. He was fast for his size. His feet pounded the sand as he ran toward Yuna. His mouth was open, and a war cry came from his throat, a deep roaring sound that shook the air. His massive fists were raised, ready to crush her skull. Yuna did not move. She stood perfectly still as Drac came closer. 10 feet, 5 feet, 3 feet. She could see his eyes burning with hate. She could smell his breath. She could hear his heart beating. At the last second, she moved. not away from him. Toward him, she stepped to her left and dropped low. Drock's fist flew over her head, missing by inches. His body was still moving forward from the charge. He could not stop. He could not turn. Una rose up and drove her knife into the soft space under his jaw. The blade went deep. Past skin, past muscle, into the brain. Drock's war cry stopped. His eyes went wide. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. For one long second, he stood there, frozen in place. Then he fell. His body hit the sand with a heavy thump. Blood pooled around his head. His legs twitched once, twice, then went still. 3 seconds. The whole fight had taken 3 seconds. The arena was silent. Una pulled her knife from Drock's skull and wiped the blade on his uniform. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was calm. She looked around at the faces of the other cadets, all of them staring at her with shock and fear. She walked out of the arena without saying a word. The whispers started. Before she reached the edge, "Did you see that? She killed him. She actually killed him. How did she know where to strike? That spot under the jaw. Only our medical officers know about that weakness. 3 seconds. She killed a Kalori in 3 seconds." Voss was waiting for her outside the arena. The Mirren's 4 hands were shaking. "Una, how did you do that?" Una put her knife back in her uniform. "I watched. I learned. I waited for the right moment. But that move, the way you stepped toward him instead of away, no one does that. Everyone runs from a charging Kalori. That is why everyone loses," Una said. She started walking back to the barracks. Behind her, the other cadets parted to let her pass. None of them spoke. None of them tried to stop her. They just watched her go, their eyes full of new understanding. The human was not weak. The human was not afraid. The human had been watching them all, learning their weaknesses, waiting for the chance to strike. In the arena, instructors were carrying away Drax's body. His blood was still warm on the sand. His eyes were still open, frozen in surprise. He had thought he was the predator. He had thought Una was the prey. He had been wrong. Una returned to her room and sat on her bed. Her heart was beating a little faster now. The adrenaline was fading. Her hands started to shake just a little, just enough for her to notice. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. This was nothing new. This was not her first kill. It would not be her last. She had learned long ago that killing was easy. The hard part was living with what you had done. But Una could live with it. She had lived with worse. Outside, the sun was setting behind the station's windows. Orange and red light filled the sky. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear cadets talking about what had happened. They were saying her name. They were calling her dangerous. Good. Let them fear her. Let them respect her. Let them understand that humans were not weak little creatures to be laughed at and pushed around. Una Park had shown them the truth. And this was only the beginning. The alarm came 3 hours after sunset. Una was lying in her bed, staring at the ceiling, when the red lights started flashing. A loud voice came through the speakers. "Emergency alert. All senior cadets report to Hangar Bay 4 immediately. This is not a drill." Voss sat up in her bed, rubbing her eyes. What is happening? Una was already putting on her boots. She had learned to sleep in her uniform. You never knew when you might need to move fast. They stepped out into the hallway. Other cadets were running past. Some of them still half asleep, others fully armed and ready. Una grabbed a passing Mirren by the arm. "What is the situation?" she asked. The Mirren looked scared. "Hollow Raiders. They attacked a research outpost on Calyx 4. They have hostages." Hollow Raiders? Una had heard of them. They were a pirate faction that operated in this sector. They killed without mercy. They never left survivors. If they had hostages, those hostages were already dead. They just did not know it yet. Senior cadets only, the Mirren said. The rest of us have to stay here. Yuna let him go. She watched as the senior cadets ran toward the hangar bay. She counted them. 20, maybe 25. Not enough to take on a full raider crew. She turned to Voss. How many researchers are at the Calyx 4 outpost? Voss thought for a moment. 37, I think. Scientists, engineers, medical staff. It is a small outpost. Not much security. 37 lives. Yuna's jaw tightened. Go back to the room, she told Voss. I will be back later. Where are you going? Yuna did not answer. She was already walking away. The secondary hangar bay was on the other side of the station. It was where they kept the training shuttles, small single-pilot craft used for flight practice. Security was light. Most of the guards had been sent to Hangar Bay 4 with the senior cadets. Yuna moved through the shadows like smoke. She had spent 2 weeks memorizing the station's layout. She knew every hallway, every door, every camera position. Getting to the hangar bay without being seen was easy. The shuttle she chose was old, but fast. She climbed inside, closed the hatch, and started the engines. The controls were simple. She had paid attention during flight training. A voice crackled through the radio. Unidentified shuttle, you are not cleared for departure. Return to the hangar immediately. Yuna turned off the radio. The shuttle shot out of the hangar bay and into open space. Calyx 4 was a small moon about 30 minutes away at full speed. Yuna pushed the engines as hard as they could go. She arrived before the coalition forces. From above, she could see the research outpost, a collection of dome-shaped buildings surrounded by a thin security fence. The fence was broken. Several of the buildings were on fire. She counted 3 raider ships parked outside. Yuna landed her shuttle behind a ridge half a mile from the outpost. She grabbed her combat knife, a small blaster she had found in the shuttle's emergency kit, and the length of thin wire from the toolbox. Then she started walking. The outpost was quiet when she reached it. Too quiet. The fires had burned down to embers. No alarms, no screaming. Either everyone was dead, or the raiders had things under control. Yuna found a ventilation shaft on the side of the main building. It was too narrow for most species. But humans were small. Humans could fit into spaces that others could not. She crawled through the darkness. The metal shaft was cold against her hands. She moved slowly, carefully, making no sound. Through the vents below her, she could see into the rooms of the outpost dot in the main hall. She found them. 37 researchers sitting on the floor with their hands behind their heads. 12 hollow raiders stood around them, armed with plasma rifles and ugly smiles. They were laughing, talking about what they would do to the hostages before they killed them. Yuna counted the raiders again. 12. She was alone. The math was not good, but she had surprise. She had darkness. And she had something the raiders did not expect. She had absolutely nothing to lose. She found a position above the hallway outside the main hall. 2 raiders were standing guard, their backs to the vent. Yuna removed the vent cover without a sound and dropped down behind them. The first raider died before he knew she was there. Her knife went through the back of his neck, cutting his spine. He fell without making a sound. The second raider turned. His eyes went wide. He opened his mouth to shout. Yuna's wire wrapped around his throat. She pulled hard, crushing his windpipe. He clawed at his neck, trying to breathe, but there was no air. 10 seconds later, he was dead. 2 down. 10 to go. She moved deeper into the outpost. The next raider was alone in a side room, searching through storage containers. Yuna came up behind him and drove her knife into the base of his skull. He dropped without a sound. 3 down. The next two were harder. They were walking together through a corridor, talking in low voices. Yuna waited until they separated at an intersection. She took the one on the left, first a quick strike to the throat. Then she ran after the other one before he could raise his weapon. 5 down. The remaining raiders were starting to notice. One of them walked into the hallway and found the bodies. He shouted in alarm. The others came running. Yuna smiled. She had planned for this. She had moved the bodies into positions that would confuse them. She had broken lights in certain places to create shadows. She had left false trails to lead them away from each other. Now, in the darkness and confusion, the raiders began to panic. They fired their weapons at every shadow, every sound. They shot at each other more than once. Yuna moved through the chaos like a ghost. A knife in the dark. A wire around a throat. A blaster bolt redirected into a friend. 6 down. 7. 8. One of the raiders tried to run back to his ship. Yuna caught him at the door. She did not waste time with the knife. She took his rifle and shot him in the head. 9. The last 3 made their stand in the main hall, using the hostages as shields. They screamed threats. They said they would kill everyone if she did not show herself. Yuna did not show herself. She climbed back into the vents and crawled until she was directly above them. Then she dropped. She landed on the shoulders of the first raider and broke his neck with her weight. Before the other 2 could react, she grabbed the dead raider's rifle and fired twice. 12 down. The main hall was silent. The hostages stared at Yuna with wide eyes. Some of them were crying. Some of them looked like they might faint. Yuna lowered the rifle. Her breathing was heavy. Her arms were shaking from exhaustion. But she was alive. The hostages were alive. She had won. 20 minutes later, coalition forces finally arrived. Commander Talus, a senior Mirren officer, led the rescue team into the outpost. He expected to find a massacre. He expected to find hostage bodies, not raider bodies. Instead, he found Yuna Park sitting on the floor of the main hall, surrounded by 12 dead pirates. Talus stopped. His 4 hands hung at his sides. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Cadet, he finally managed. What? What happened here? Yuna looked up at him. Her face was pale. There was blood on her uniform, none of it hers. They were going to kill the researchers at dawn, she said. I did not have time to wait for backup. Talus looked around at the bodies. Knife wounds. Broken necks. Blaster burns. Wire marks on throats. His people had not even reached Calyx 4 yet, and this human girl had already killed every single raider by herself. How long have you been here? He asked. 40 minutes. Maybe less. 40 minutes. 12 dead. 1 human cadet, alone in the dark, against a crew of hollow raiders. Talus had commanded soldiers from 43 species. He had never seen anything like this. He looked at Yuna Park small, quiet, covered in blood, and for the first time in his long career, he felt something like fear. Not fear of the raiders, fear of her. The shuttle shook as it passed through the station's energy shield. Yuna Park sat alone in the back row, her small bag between her feet. Through the window, she could see Station Orva 7 growing larger. It was massive. Metal and glass stretched across the darkness of space. Like a small city floating among the stars. She was the only human on the shuttle. Around her sat aliens of many species. Some were tall with hard skin like stone. Others were thin with 4 arms and eyes that glowed soft blue. None of them looked at her. None of them spoke to her. To them, she was invisible. Yuna did not mind. She had been invisible her whole life. The shuttle landed with a gentle bump. The doors opened and bright white poured in. Yuna picked up her bag and walked out into the station. The air smelled clean and cold, nothing like the dirty streets of Neo-Bizon where she grew up. Everything here was new. Everything was perfect. A voice came from speakers above. All new cadets report to Processing Hall 7. Yuna followed the signs. She walked through wide hallways filled with aliens in military uniforms. Many of them stopped to look at her. Their eyes moved up and down her small body. Some of them smiled in a way that was not friendly. Others simply turned away as if looking at her was a waste of time. She heard whispers as she passed. "Is that a human? I heard they let one in this year. Why? They break so easily." Yuna kept walking. Her face showed nothing. Her steps did not slow. She had heard worse things in her life. Much worse. Processing Hall 7 was a large room with long lines of new cadets, waiting to receive their uniforms and room assignments. Yuna joined the back of one line. In front of her stood a Kalori, one of the tall aliens with bone-plated skin. He was nearly 8 feet tall. His shoulders were wider than two humans standing together. When he turned and saw Yuna behind him, he made a sound like a laugh. "They send children to this academy now?" he said. His voice was deep and rough. Yuna looked up at him. She did not speak. The Kalori waited for her to respond. When she did not, his smile faded. "Do you not understand my words, soft blood? Or are you too scared to speak?" "I understand," Yuna said. Her voice was quiet and calm. "I just have nothing to say to you." The Kalori's eyes narrowed. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to hit her. But hitting another cadet outside of training was against the rules. He turned back around and said nothing more. Yuna waited. She was good at waiting. When she reached the front of the line, a Mirren officer looked at her with surprise. Mirrens had 4 arms and smooth gray skin. Their eyes were large and could see in the dark. This one was female, with sharp features and a tired expression. "Human," the officer said. "Yuna Park?" "Yes." The officer checked her screen. "You are assigned to Barracks 12. Your bunkmate is Cadet Voss. Training begins at 0600 tomorrow. Do not be late." She handed Yuna a uniform and a small metal card. "This is your access key. Do not lose it." Yuna took the items and walked away. She found Barracks 12 on the 3rd level of the living quarters. The room was small but clean. 2 beds, 2 desks, 2 lockers. One side of the room was already taken. The sheets were messy, and strange objects sat on the desk tools. Broken machine parts, a small plant in a metal pod. Yuna put her bag on the empty bed and began to unpack. She did not have much. Some clothes, a photograph of her mother, a small knife with a wooden handle that she kept hidden inside her jacket. The door opened behind her. A Mirren walked in. She was young, maybe the same age as Yuna in human years. Her forearms moved quickly as she carried a box of more machine parts. When she saw Yuna, she stopped. "Oh," she said. "You are my new bunkmate?" "Yes." The Mirren put down her box and studied Yuna with curious eyes. "I am Voss. I work with machines. I am not very good at fighting, but they say I am smart." She paused. "You are human?" "Yes." "I have never met a human before. You are smaller than I expected." Yuna finished unpacking and sat on her bed. Humans come in many sizes. Voss tilted her head. "You do not talk much, do you?" "No, that is strange. I read that humans talk all the time, that they cannot stop making noise." "Some humans are like that," Yuna said. "I am not." Voss seemed to think about this. Then she shrugged with all 4 shoulders, a strange movement that Yuna had never seen before. "Well, I talk enough for both of us. You will get used to it." She went to her desk and began working on one of her machines. Yuna lay back on her bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, training would begin. Tomorrow, She would have to prove herself to aliens who thought humans were weak and useless. She was not worried. Yuna had grown up in the worst part of Neo-Bizin. Her mother died when she was 7. Her father was never there. She lived on the streets, stealing food, hiding from gangs, learning to survive in a world that wanted her dead. By the time she was 12, she had already killed a man. He had tried to hurt her. She had not let him. She learned something important that night. She learned that being small did not mean being weak. She learned that being quiet did not mean being scared. She learned that the ones who talked the most were often the ones who died first. Silence was a weapon. Patience was a weapon. Watching and waiting and learning, these were the things that kept her alive. The aliens on this station did not know this. They looked at her small body and saw nothing dangerous. They heard her quiet voice and thought she was afraid. They were wrong. Yuna closed her eyes. In the darkness behind her eyelids, she saw the faces of everyone who had ever underestimated her. Most of them were dead now. Tomorrow, she would show these aliens what a human could do. Not with words, not with anger. She would show them with action. When the time was right. Until then, she would watch. She would learn. She would wait. That was what humans did. That was what made them survive for 10,000 years on a planet that tried to kill them every single day. Yuna Park was not the strongest cadet at the academy. She was not the fastest or the biggest. But she was patient. She was smart. And she was not afraid to do what needed to be done. The aliens would learn this soon enough. Sleep came easily. Yuna had learned long ago to rest when she could. Tomorrow would be hard. Tomorrow would be painful. But she had survived worse. In her dreams, she walked through the dark streets of Neo-Bizin. She was 7 years old again, hungry and alone. But she was not scared. She was never scared. She was just waiting.